no matter what job you're in, there could be an opportunity to analyze data right where you are. Like anytime you see something in Excel that's maybe not super efficient or anything like that, like there's probably a data analytics project opportunity there. And there's just so much like free learning content online. So I think if people are interested in moving into analytics, like there's more content than ever now.
Hey nerds, Monica here. Welcome to the Data Podcast for Nerds, where we get to talk to amazing professionals and ask them all about how they're using data to solve the world's problems. We're sharing all the tips, tricks, and nerdy fun bits to make you the best data professional you can be. Today with us, we have Megan Bowers. How are you doing today, Megan?
Doing great. Excited to be here.
Glad to have you here. So we typically start off our show by asking people about their origin stories. So if you could please tell us about your background and how you got to where you are today in your career.
Yeah, sure thing. I like framing it as an origin story. It makes me feel like a superhero or something. Um, yeah, so in terms of my background, I guess in college, I majored in industrial engineering, which was a super broad topic where I got to learn a little bit about all kinds of engineering. But once I graduated and took a job in tech consulting, I was kind of lost and like didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't want to do the manufacturing engineering. But throughout some internships and my first job, I kind of latched on to the fact that I really liked projects where I got to work with data, like working in Excel. I would find that kind of like lost track of time because it was interesting. And so I decided I wanted to pivot into more of like a data analyst or data scientist role. So like during COVID, I did a data science bootcamp and kind of got a few more of those hard skills and a little more data analytics practice. And eventually joined Stanley Black & Decker as a data analyst. And that was a really great experience working with data there. Got my hands on Alteryx and Power BI, and I was using those two tools a lot. And then, sorry, the story is long and winding, but basically, while I was at Stanley, I was blogging, writing about my experience, and Power BI tips, Alteryx tips, data analytics things, and then ended up getting a job at Alteryx to basically do that kind of writing, blog writing and editing and such for Alteryx. And so kind of like switched career paths into instead of doing analytics, more talking about analytics, writing about it, writing about use cases, etc. And now I additionally host our podcast about data analytics. So kind of a data analytics content creator in a way now.
Yes, that sounds so fun.
It is.
And
yeah.
I'm sure that you still get opportunities to leverage data in your current role. Is that right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of times where it comes in handy having the data analytics background and since I'm in charge of the blogs and podcasts, like reviewing analytics for those, getting to play around with some of our tools like Auto Insights, which is kind of like automatic dashboarding, and then looking at the blogs and the topic trends. And so there's definitely like opportunities and different things that we do on our Alteryx community where I get to kind of dive into the data, which is always fun.
That is really cool. So from a general perspective, you got a job at Alteryx by basically just writing about how awesome their tool is, right? So like what specifically were some topics that you were sharing in your blog?
Yeah, I had kind of started the blog back as I was in this data science bootcamp. So I started off writing articles like kind of articles like on things that I wish I knew 6 months ago or 3 months ago. So data science concepts for beginners, or walking through tips I learned from projects. And so a lot of my content was kind of getting into data science, getting into analytics. Then once I started, doing that for my full-time job, it became more topics like, how do you know your analysis is correct? How do you validate your data analysis? Or, what are some tips and tricks, like 7 things in Alteryx I wish I knew sooner to optimize workflows? Or here's my favorite Power BI feature. So it became a little more hands-on, like based on what I was doing, and like the topics, instead of coming from my curriculum and thinking about what I wish I knew before, it was more, okay, now that I'm in this job as an analyst, like what are people asking me, or what comes up a lot? What is knowledge that I think like more people could benefit from?
Mm-hmm. Did you have one that was the most popular topic?
Yeah, I did. And it's funny because it was a silly one where I had this series. I think I called it like the life of a data analyst, and it was kind of me venting about the different data struggles that people face. And I drew these little kind of drawings of like, you know the tiny overlap between what your stakeholders want and the data you actually have, or drawing out. It was very nerdy, so fits for this podcast. Maybe we can link it somewhere. But yeah, I think that series really touched on something that other people felt, because it got a ton of response. And I was able to like monetize these articles on Medium, and it like those that series like took off, and everybody was kind of like, yeah, me too. This is hard, or oh, this is funny. So it was a really low effort article, so it's kind of funny that one like took off and resonated, but I had fun writing it. I also had another popular few articles about like explaining data science to a 5-year-old. So that was kind of fun. And that, I think one of those is like what helped me get my job at Stanley. Like they saw these articles and were like, ooh, she could kind of be between the business and the technology side. But yeah, that was like a challenge to try to break down concepts like as simply as humanly possible. And so that was kind of fun to write too.
Just curious, do you remember any of the analogies or examples to the 5-year-olds?
One of them I was talking about different algorithms and stuff. So it was like grouping things based on similar categories. I can't remember what analogies I was using, but I also kind of made some visuals to like make it as simple as possible. But I'm not sure I achieved the 5-year-old level. Maybe a high schooler.
Okay. That's fair. That's
It's a
fair.
catchy title.
I feel like anytime that you have visuals, it really resonates with people. I recently
Hmm.
posted, you might be a data analyst if, and then it was like the Legos. I'm sure you've seen that before, where it's like raw data is just all the Legos on the floor, and then it kind of progresses into sorting the data, cleaning the data, and there's like a house at the bottom, and it's like data
Yeah.
visualization.
Totally. No, I think visuals are super powerful, and it makes sense why people are, in the data visualization field, and there's all this special tools for it, because the amount of information you're able to like grasp so much quicker. Um it's really effective.
Yeah. So it sounds like you had kind of two spaces of interest when you were the data analyst type. um, we'll call you a guru, where you were working with a data analytics, and then you were also working with data visualizations.
Mhm.
What would you say was your favorite part if you had to pick one?
Yeah, I think my favorite was a little bit more of like the analytics side and just like the data ETL. Because it was like really satisfying to be able to get to data that maybe business users didn't have before, or like it was almost like figuring out a puzzle sometimes with all the complex like ERP systems, all that kind of stuff, and being able to actually finally get to that data and validate it and stuff. I wouldn't say I was really an expert on the visualization side, so that might have been why I didn't like it as much, because it was like some more trial and error versus I got really good at using Alteryx. So that could be a part of it too.
Yeah. I struggle with the creativity side of it, so I
Mm.
also kind of gear more towards the analytics side.
Yeah, it can be hard to design a visual from scratch. It's helpful if a company has, their own templates or style or guidelines, but even then, you can really sink some serious time into just setting up, certain visualizations and filters and the display aspect of it, in those data visualization tools.
Absolutely. So we talked about tools. What specific types of problems are your favorite to solve using data?
One thing is just like the kinds of problems where you're relying on like a bunch of different data sources and pulling them together. I guess that kind of relates to the whole data ETL, enjoying that. But like piecing together information by pulling in a bunch of sources. There was like a project I did at Stanley where we were looking, it was still kind of during COVID, and we were looking at different data from that and just using a ton of APIs and web scraping and all this stuff to pull in data from every state on certain statistics related to the pandemic. And so I feel like that was a really interesting problem to look at and try and solve, and deal with the discrepancies of all the formatting issues between everything and kind of like pulling it into one nice clean data set. But in terms of maybe like use cases or domains, I think that there's like some really interesting problems like with more like geospatial data analysis. I really didn't haven't done much of that, but anytime someone talks about it on our blog or comes on the podcast talks to me about it, I'm like, this is so interesting. Like it's just really cool to think about the visualization and like the insights you can get from geolocation data and latitude and longitude and stuff.
Yeah,
So those are a
absolutely.
few that come to mind.
Yes. So, speaking of the blog, I think this is a really good time to transition into the fun bits section.
Cool.
So, you mentioned Alteryx has a blog and you look at the different trends and all of the topics that people are using. What are kind of some fun projects that have been taken from that?
There's a lot. There's a huge variety of like blog submissions that we get, and we publish blogs on behalf of our users, so as well as employees. So it's just like a huge pool. I'm trying to think of some of the use cases. We've definitely had some kind of fun random ones around like event planning or different kind of like real world, like I used Alteryx um, to help with the seating chart for my event. Or I used Alteryx to create a human bingo card for this networking thing where it's like kind of like randomizing these cards of questions and something. Or I have heard from multiple people, and I can't remember if we have a blog on it, but they used Alteryx to figure out like this is very nerdy, but figure out the what the data says about the best city or spot for them to move. Not even city, like neighborhood level analysis in terms of like getting data on schools, on walkability, on all the different type of data you can have in a city and a suburb, and doing some analysis that way, and like just having more informed decisions. um, I guess I could talk a little bit too about this thing we do called the advent of code, because we started putting out some blogs around that recently. Um, but that's another kind of fun use of Alteryx, and we've been creating content around it, which is there's this yearly coding competition where these puzzles are posted each day in December for like a little coding advent calendar. But then there's a group of people at Alteryx who challenge themselves to try to solve these puzzles using just Alteryx as a tool. And so people get really into it, really creative, really technical with these solutions. It starts to be like some crazy logic and stuff. But we just started putting out some blogs around, different ways people have like solved these kind of maze challenges and these grid search challenges and kind of like algorithm thinking and problem solving inside of Alteryx.
Yeah. So how do you get involved in the Advent code challenges?
Yeah, so on our community, we have threads we post each day that anyone can respond to. You basically just have to have a community account and have have Alteryx downloaded on your computer, and then the challenges are posted. They're posted on a different site that's available to anyone, and there are plenty of people throughout the world solving it in Python, solving it in literally every language that you can think of. So it's kind of it's a really cool challenge. And yeah, maybe we can link, like we do a blog each year about how you can get involved, how you can compete if you're interested in that, earn badges, etc.
Absolutely. I just recently was added to the community at Alteryx, and I mean, we talked about a month back, and after our chat, I was like, oh, I need to learn everything I can about the Alteryx tool. So I need to find more projects, personal projects to use it with. I got Designer Core certified. You gave me the inspiration to go for it and learn more about the tool, and it's amazing. And I thank you for that.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I mean, I guess on the topic of fun things, like our community has a ton of fun stuff and stuff that's been gamified. And so if you get into it, like there's weekly challenges that we have a whole pretty active cohort that'll each week do the challenge, and you earn badges, and the badges are like you climbing a mountain. And so you're like at the base camp, then you move to the midway camp, and eventually you work your way up to the summit. And so there's like fun stuff like that on our community too. Just tons of ways to learn about the product, tons of free content, um, interactive lesson videos, and then yeah, definitely opportunities to challenge yourself and like try it out and solve these little weekly puzzles or solve the bigger puzzles in December for Advent of Code.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask how different the Advent and the weekly challenges work. So you covered that.
Mm. Yeah. The weekly challenges really are like they do different ones. They'll put out beginner ones, intermediate, advanced. They do a variety, and now you can go on there and kind of filter. If you are studying for like a certain certification, you can filter on that certification level and check out the ones like if you want to get to your advanced one. Okay, what are some challenges I could do that are more at that advanced level?
Do you participate in the weekly challenges?
I should. I haven't been lately. Been busy on the content creation side. But we did also just like start doing cloud challenges too, because now we have some cloud products, Designer Cloud, that you can use on your browser. And so that is on my list to like get back into. Stay sharp on the designer
Yes.
skills. It's hard to balance.
Well, I know that you've used Alteryx for personal projects, right? Didn't you mention that you used it for your wedding planning?
I did, yeah. Yeah, so I got married last year in April, and it was crazy to me, like the amount of data reconciliation when it came to we had a decent sized guest list, I suppose, and we had this cool online system, but the guest list had to be in this exact format, and then we needed a different format for like printing out these names and addresses on envelopes, which was a whole other challenge. But basically, I needed this guest list in multiple formats and whatnot. So I ended up using Alteryx to like reformat it and get it ready for like both different systems, whether it was the RSVP system or the printing out, as well as reconcile any changes, because guest lists move around. And so it was actually really helpful to clean that up and not get too confused in Excel. Because nowadays I go into Excel and I lose track of what I've done, or it's harder for me after using Alteryx for a while where I can kind of see those step by steps. But yeah, I had a good time using Alteryx for that, and then posted about it on LinkedIn and a bunch of other people. I asked people, have you done something like this in Alteryx? Like, have you used Alteryx for your personal life? And I got some really fun comments.
I'm wondering all of the different ways that people have used it for personal projects. One that comes to mind that like everybody has done probably that's in the data analytic data science space is the Kaggle Titanic data
Mm,
set.
yeah, that's a good one. I've definitely used Kaggle for like kind of like when I want to write a blog about maybe highlighting some specific tools. I'm like, what data set could I use to demonstrate this? I have used Kaggle to kind of get those data sets. A fun one I did, a fun article I did a while back was using our text mining and sentiment analysis tools. And I was thinking, what would be a fun data set to like determine sentiment on? And it was back when Taylor Swift was doing her big Eras tour. So I found a data set on GitHub with like all of her lyrics from all of her songs, and then kind of charted out the average sentiment by album over time. It actually might have been before the tour because I think it stopped with some of her slower, sadder albums. But that was actually that was a really fun article to write, and interesting to look at with this data I know well because I listen to her music, then seeing how the text sentiment analysis tools classified things. I'm like, oh, like this song is really sarcastic, but it doesn't get that. It thinks that it's a happy, positive song, but she's really being sarcastic here in this one. Or and vice versa, a more negative song or a more positive song that like had some negative words, and so it classified it as negative sentiment. So that was another fun example of like using the Alteryx tools for a fun, silly use case. Yeah, I'm looking now at the LinkedIn post I did, hearing from other people. We had one about finding a week in a year that works for a holiday for everybody, for a big group
Oh.
trip planning. It's really like anything in your life where there's numbers almost, you could do a mini data analysis project if you were so inclined, I would say.
Yes.
Oh, this one was Little League Baseball. They found out um, that some registrations were off because when they plotted the registration, somebody was in a different state, which was a mistake.
Oh,
Finding some data
interesting.
discrepancies. So anyway, you could stop me. I don't know. I could go on and on about little random analysis, but it's fun. It's fun when you have
Yeah.
that analytical brain and you start applying it everywhere.
Yes, I could definitely go down rabbit holes for hours just doing research and learning new things.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's fun too is we have like the Alteryx gallery on the community, which is a cool place where people can upload and post workflows or macros or tools that they've created. And so it can be kind of fun to look on there and see what other people have done. And see, oh, this person used this for Spotify song analysis, or oh, this person maybe made a tool for this really common use case of finding the holidays in a month, or whatever. Basically, like these bits and pieces that you could plug into your workflows, or just see other people's workflows and see what they're up to.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
yeah, you can definitely push the tool to do whatever you want. And like at our conference each year at Inspire, there's always a session where different super users get up and just show crazy, ridiculous things that they do. In Alteryx, it's called like Alteryx Obscura. And It's very fun. It's very much, here I can play a snake game in Alteryx. It's like it's getting into more the coding side of just pushing the limits just for fun and just to see what it can do. But that's always a place where I see things and kind of blows my mind on how people can use the tool and just what you can do with data.
Yeah. Oh, Snake brings me back. That was such a fun game.
Totally.
So, this is a question that I ask all my guests, and it's around learning new things. And it
Mhm.
sounds like Inspire is one place where you can go to learn new things for specifically the Alteryx platform. But I want to know what your approach is to learning new things. What are your go to resources and anything that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, totally. I personally love like curating my LinkedIn feed by following people in data, in AI who post content about what they're doing, about industry news and trends. And that has been really helpful for me to kind of digest and get new information quickly and learn about different tools to try out, different AI capabilities in a way that feels more accessible because you could just go on your phone for 5 or 10 minutes and check it out versus having these long newsletters or taking a course. I think I do enjoy taking courses here and there, but there's just not always time for that. So I kind of like the bite size approach of LinkedIn. And the same kind of goes for podcasts. Following some, I really like following like tech news podcasts. And since I host my own podcast, I'm listening to other data podcasts to learn from them and their guests and keep up to date with the trends in the space. And I think the last thing I'd say in terms of learning new things is I'm definitely a big proponent of just learn by doing. That was actually like the motto at Cal Poly where I went to college. And I think it holds true for me at least. It can be the most helpful learning experience to just go try and do something, whether that's trying something in our product or our new products or learn by doing, trying out AI tools. There's like a new tool every day. So learning about them by just getting in there. If there's a free trial or whatever. And yeah, I think for the bigger topics where it's like, oh, I want to learn maybe statistical analysis, something bigger and more technical, that would be where I would maybe choose to take a course.
So, for folks in the audience that are kind of transitioning into data, trying to learn more about data, do you have any recommendations or words of encouragement for them?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, these words may be stolen from other or borrowed from other podcast guests that I've interviewed, but I think an encouragement is just no matter what job you're in, there could be an opportunity to analyze data kind of right where you are, like looking for those projects. Um, like anytime you see something in Excel that's maybe not super efficient or anything like that, like there's probably a data analytics project opportunity there. And there's just so much like free learning content online. I know a lot of people who have upskilled quite a bit from like YouTube courses. So I think if people are interested in moving into analytics, like there's more content than ever now. And I think you can use AI to help with that conceptual learning as well. Now you can say, oh, I don't understand decision tree models and plug it in and it'll write a whole essay for you. And then you can, maybe not essay, but then you can ask follow up questions and be specific. And all of a sudden you have a decision tree model expert to chat with. So I do think that there's lots of ways to upskill and learn and get into analytics for anyone who's interested.
Yeah, definitely. The options are limitless.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so very much, Megan, for coming on the show. If any of the audience members have any questions for you, where can they find and or follow you?
Yeah, sure. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm under Megan Bowers, and on there you'll find links to the podcast I host, which is called Alter Everything. We have shows bi-weekly where we talk about all kinds of data hot topics, Alteryx use cases, hear from industry leaders, founders of startups. So really great show if you're kind of interested in all things data. So there's a link to that on my LinkedIn, as well as a link to like my personal blog that I've had over the years. So I think that's the best place to keep in touch. And if you're on the Alteryx community, I'm on there too, also as Megan Bowers.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again for coming on the show. And as always, folks, happy learning.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Data Podcast for Nerds. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you want to transition your career and become a data professional, follow me on LinkedIn for even more tips, tricks, and nerdy fun bits.